Spain is a bit of a puzzle. Many folks think of it as a country with lively cities, full of people and noise. They picture the busy streets of Madrid or the vibrant beaches of Barcelona. And that's true. But it's only part of the story. There's another Spain, a huge and quiet one that most tourists never see. This is the Spain in the middle of the country, a place with wide open spaces and peaceful villages. We call this, or the empty Spain. It's a land where fewer and fewer people live, where towns are disappearing, and where silence has taken over from the sounds of everyday life. This big difference between the crowded coast and the empty middle is one of the biggest problems Spain faces today. The numbers are pretty surprising. Most of Spain's people live in just a small part of the country. The big cities and the areas along the coast are packed with people. But if you draw a line across the map, you'll find huge areas where very few people live. Places like Castilla y León, Aragon, and Extremadura have about the same number of people per square mile as places like Lapland or the Scottish Highlands. These aren't remote, harsh deserts. They are rich lands with a long history. For hundreds of years, these places were the very heart of Spain. Now, they're becoming hollowed out, leaving a deep feeling of absence and a big question: why did everyone leave? This emptying out didn't happen all at once. It's been a slow process going on for many decades. It's a story of changes in money and jobs, decisions made by the government, and dreams that have shifted. Young people have been leaving their family villages to find jobs, schooling, and chances that the countryside just couldn't offer anymore. They moved to the cities, building new lives and leaving their old ones behind. Each person who left took a piece of the village's spirit with them. The schools closed, then the local shops, and finally the bars where neighbors used to meet. What's left is a quiet landscape, beautiful but also eerily empty. Understanding this situation is super important for understanding modern Spain. It's not just about how many people live where or about money. It's about what makes Spain, Spain. The empty Spain isn't just a place on a map. It's a part of its culture and feelings. It shows a past that's fading away, a way of life that's almost gone. The story is the story of a country trying to bring its two halves together, the busy modern city Spain and the quiet forgotten country Spain. It's a search for balance, a mission to make sure the heart of the country doesn't stop beating for good. The story of Spain's empty interior begins long before the 20th century. Its roots are buried deep in the country's geography and history. Spain is a land of mountains and high plateaus, a geography that has always made communication and travel difficult. The central, a vast elevated plain, is harsh and unforgiving. It has scorching summers and freezing winters. This challenging environment shaped the character of its people and the structure of its communities. For centuries, villages were isolated from one another, separated by difficult terrain. This isolation fostered a strong sense of local identity, but also made it difficult to build a connected, unified economy across the entire territory. The Romans arrived and imposed a new order on the Iberian Peninsula. They were master engineers and administrators. They built roads, aqueducts, and cities, creating a network that connected different regions for the first time. However, their focus was strategic. They built their infrastructure to control territory and extract resources, like minerals and grain. Their main routes often bypassed the more remote, less productive areas of the interior. This created an early pattern of development that favored certain regions over others. The seeds of an imbalance were sown, with a few well-connected urban centers thriving, while vast rural areas remained on the periphery of power and progress. Later, the long period of Muslim rule, especially in the south, brought new agricultural techniques and flourishing cities like Cordoba and Granada. But the centuries-long campaign to retake the peninsula was a constant state of war. This conflict transformed the interior into a frontier zone. It was a land of castles and fortifications where life was precarious. After the Christians reconquered these lands, they were often repopulated with people from the north. However, the land was divided into large estates, or owned by the nobility or the church. This system created a society of powerful landowners and a large class of poor, landless peasants, which limited opportunities for small farmers to prosper. This historical legacy created a rural Spain that was fundamentally fragile. Its economy was based on subsistence agriculture, its communities were often isolated, and its social structure offered little room for advancement. For centuries, life was hard, and people endured it because there were few alternatives. But this deep-rooted vulnerability meant that when the modern world arrived with its promise of a different kind of life, the foundations of rural society were not strong enough to withstand the change. The historical patterns of isolation and economic inequality laid the groundwork for the great exodus that was to come, making the emptying of the countryside almost inevitable. The second half of the 20th century cemented the trend of rural depopulation. The economic boom of the 1960s, often called the Spanish Miracle, was almost entirely an urban phenomenon. New industries, construction projects, and a growing service sector created a huge demand for workers in cities like Madrid, Barcelona, and Bilbao. For someone living in a small village with limited prospects, the city seemed like a land of infinite possibility. It offered not just jobs, but also access to better education for their children, modern healthcare, and the excitement of a new and dynamic lifestyle. The pull of the metropolis was irresistible, a powerful magnet drawing people away from the land. This migration was not just about economics, it was also about a profound shift in aspirations. The traditional rural life, which had been the norm for centuries, began to be seen as old-fashioned and undesirable. Television and cinema brought images of a modern consumerist world into every home, showcasing a life that seemed far more exciting than the slow, repetitive rhythm of the village. Young people, in particular, grew tired of the hard physical labor and social constraints of rural communities. They dreamed of personal freedom, anonymity, and the chance to forge their own destiny, something they felt was impossible in a place where everyone knew their family history and their future seemed predetermined. The departure of the youth created a vicious cycle of decline. As the younger, most dynamic people left, the villages began to age rapidly. With fewer children, the local school would be the first to close. This was often the final blow for families who had considered staying, as they were forced to move for their children's education. Then, as the population dwindled further, the local shop, the bakery, and the doctor's office could no longer stay in business. The social life of the village, which had once revolved around these shared spaces, began to disintegrate. The community grew weaker with each family that left, making it even harder for those who remained to sustain a vibrant local life. Even after the Franco era ended and Spain became a democracy, the trend continued. The new democratic governments continued to invest heavily in high-speed trains and highways that connected the major cities to each other, often bypassing the empty interior. While these projects were symbols of a modern Spain, they reinforced the urban-centric model of development. The countryside remained disconnected and forgotten. The logic of the market economy favored concentration and efficiency, and small rural communities simply could not compete. The Great Migration had become a self-perpetuating process, leaving behind a demographic desert in the heart of the country. The emptying of rural Spain is more than just losing people. It's a huge loss of culture. Every village that loses its people is like a library burning down. It holds special stories, traditions, and knowledge passed down for many years. This includes local ways of speaking, old songs, and recipes unique to that place. It also includes practical knowledge about the land, how to understand the weather, which plants are medicine, and how to take care of the local environment in a good way. When the oldest people in a village pass away, this rich culture often disappears with them, gone forever. The quiet in the empty villages is the sound of a culture slowly fading away. Community is another big thing lost because of this change in people. In a traditional Spanish village, life was built on helping each other and having close relationships. Neighbors weren't just people living next door, they were like an extended family. They helped each other with farming, took care of each other's kids, and celebrated holidays together. This strong feeling of community gave them a good safety net and a deep sense of belonging. In the big city, where people are more unknown and focus on themselves, many who moved found money stability but lost this important human connection. The feeling of being part of something bigger than yourself, which was a main part of village life, is hard to find in a city apartment building. The land itself also shows this loss. The hillsides, carefully shaped by hand over hundreds of years to grow olives or grapes, are now falling apart and covered in plants. The old stone walls that once marked property lines are collapsing. These are not just farm features. They are like history books written on the land, telling a story of human effort and cleverness. As people leave, The land they shaped and kept up for generations starts to lose its human touch. Nature takes back the fields and paths, but it's a wilder, less storied nature. The connection between people and their environment, a bond made over thousands of years, is broken. In the end, this process changes what Spain is all about. The country's culture has long been linked to these rural traditions. Flamenco, bullfighting, and local festivals all started in the countryside. As the source of these traditions weakens, Spanish identity becomes more similar and focused on cities. The rich variety that came from thousands of different local cultures is being replaced by a more standard, global culture. The memory of what Spain was is fading. The challenge is not just to save the villages but to protect the cultural core of the country itself before these fading marks completely disappear from the land. Across the vast interior of Spain, a new and haunting type of settlement has appeared: the ghost village. These are not ancient ruins from Roman times. They are places that were full of life just a few decades ago. Now they stand silent and abandoned, their stone houses slowly surrendering to nature. Walking through one of these villages, known as, is a powerful and unsettling experience. You can see the empty schoolhouse with its small wooden desks, the church with its roof caved in, and homes where personal belongings were left behind in the rush to leave. These places are not just empty, they are filled with the ghosts of a recent past, a tangible reminder of the communities that vanished. The reasons for abandonment vary from village to village, but they follow a similar pattern. Often it was a slow decline, as one family after another left for the cities, until only a few elderly residents remained. When they passed away, the village fell completely silent. In other cases, the end came more suddenly. Some villages were expropriated by the state in the mid-20th century to build large dams and reservoirs, part of Franco's push for industrialization. The inhabitants were forced to leave their homes, which were then flooded. Today, when the water levels are low, the ghostly skeletons of these submerged villages sometimes reappear, their church towers breaking the surface of the water like a finger pointing to a lost world. These abandoned landscapes have become a source of fascination for explorers, photographers, and artists. They travel into the heart to document these places before they crumble into dust. Their photographs and stories reveal a hidden side of Spain, a landscape of profound beauty and melancholy. The images of empty streets, crumbling walls, and nature reclaiming human spaces are powerful symbols of the country's demographic crisis. They force us to confront what has been lost and to question the model of progress that led to this outcome. These ghost villages are open-air museums of a forgotten way of life, monuments to the great rural exodus. But these places are not entirely dead. They are landscapes of memory, holding the stories of the people who once lived there. Many former residents and their descendants feel a strong connection to their ancestral villages. They return for annual festivals to honor the local saint, even if no one lives there anymore. They clean the cemetery, have a community meal among the ruins, and tell stories to their children about the life that once was. These acts of remembrance are a way of keeping the spirit of the village alive. The ghost villages of Spain are a testament to both loss and resilience, a silent but powerful chapter in the nation's ongoing story. Just as it seems the story of rural Spain is one of irreversible decline, a new chapter is beginning to be written. A quiet but growing movement is underway to bring life back to the empty villages. This is not about turning back the clock, but about finding a new purpose for these places in the 21st century. The people leading this change are diverse. Some are the children or grandchildren of those who left, now looking to reconnect with their roots. Others are city dwellers tired of the stressful, expensive urban lifestyle, searching for a better quality of life. There are also immigrants from other countries who see opportunity and beauty in the places that many Spaniards abandoned. One of the most inspiring strategies involves the full-scale revitalization of entire villages. Some abandoned hamlets have been bought by associations or cooperatives with the goal of rebuilding them from the ground up. These projects often focus on creating sustainable, eco-friendly communities. They restore the old stone houses using traditional techniques, establish organic farms, and create spaces for tourism, art, or wellness retreats. These initiatives are small in scale, but they serve as powerful models of what is possible. They demonstrate that with vision and collective effort, a ghost village can be transformed back into a vibrant living community, generating a new sustainable economy based on its unique heritage and natural surroundings. The government is also starting to pay more attention to the problem of depopulation. Both national and regional authorities are launching new programs to support rural areas. These initiatives include financial incentives for people who want to move to a small village, such as tax breaks or grants to start a business. There are also investments in improving essential services, like healthcare and schools, to make rural life more attractive to young families. Some towns are even offering houses for a very low rent to new residents who commit to living and working there. These policies are a clear sign that the political conversation is shifting and that is no longer being ignored. At the heart of this hopeful movement is a change in perception. For decades, the countryside was seen as a symbol of backwardness. Today, it is increasingly being valued for what it offers: clean air, open space, tranquility, and a strong sense of community. The COVID-19 pandemic accelerated this trend, as many people working remotely realized they could do their jobs from anywhere. The search for a healthier, more balanced life is leading a new generation of pioneers back to the land. They are planting new seeds in old soil, not just of crops, but of hope, innovation, and a new vision for the future of rural Spain. In the 21st century, one of the most powerful tools for revitalizing rural Spain is not a tractor or a plow, but a high-speed internet connection. For decades, the lack of economic opportunity was the main reason people left the villages. Today, the digital revolution is changing that equation. With reliable internet, many modern jobs are no longer tied to a physical office in a big city. A graphic designer, a software developer, or a marketing consultant can now work from a restored stone house in a tiny village in Aragon, just as easily as from a skyscraper in Madrid. This new reality of remote work is creating a digital bridge that can connect the most isolated parts of the country to the global economy. The arrival of fiber optic cables and improved mobile networks in rural areas is a game changer. It allows for the emergence of a new type of rural resident, the digital nomad or remote worker. These individuals bring new energy, skills, and income into the local community without needing to create a traditional business. They support the local shop, eat at the village restaurant, and enroll their children in the local school, helping to sustain the very services that were on the brink of collapse. This influx of new people can be the spark that reignites the social and economic life of a village, proving that modernity and rural life are no longer mutually exclusive. Beyond remote work, technology is also transforming traditional rural industries like agriculture and tourism. Farmers can now use drones to monitor their crops, sensors to optimize irrigation, and online platforms to sell their products directly to consumers, bypassing intermediaries and earning a better profit. In tourism, the internet allows small guest houses and rural experiences to be marketed to a global audience. A traveler looking for an authentic, off-the-beaten-path vacation can now easily discover and book a stay in a village they would have never found otherwise. Technology is enabling rural Spain to capitalize on its unique assets, its nature, its heritage, and its tranquility. Of course, the digital bridge is not yet complete. There are still many areas with poor or non-existent internet access. Closing this digital divide is one of the most urgent challenges for the government. It is an investment not just in infrastructure, but in the future viability of thousands of communities. By ensuring that every village has access to the digital world, Spain can unlock the immense potential of its heartland. The internet cannot solve all the problems of rural depopulation, but it provides a powerful tool to create new opportunities, attract new residents, and build a future where living in a small village is a choice, not a limitation. The story of Empty Spain is a complex and often sad tale of loss, neglect, and forgotten places. It's the story of a country that, in its rush to be modern, left its own heartland behind. The quiet streets of empty villages and the big empty plains really show the human cost of developing unevenly. For many years, people only moved in one direction, away from the countryside and to the busy cities. This huge move emptied out communities, wiped away hundreds of years of culture, and created a deep split in the country between the busy, seen Spain and the quiet, unseen one. But the last part of this story hasn't been written yet. The story of things getting worse is slowly starting to change. Now it's a story of hope, new ideas, and finding things again. The quiet of the empty inside is being broken by new voices and new ideas. More and more people are seeing how valuable what was left behind is: the clean air, The strong communities, the deep connection to nature, and a slower, more human way of life. They aren't trying to make the past happen again, but to build a new future for rural Spain, one that respects old ways, but also uses the chances of the modern world. The way forward isn't easy. It needs a strong promise from governments to put money into things like internet and services. It needs smart plans that help new businesses and make it easier for families to live in rural areas. Most importantly, it needs a big change in how the country thinks. A new appreciation for the countryside, not as something old from the past, but as a very important part of Spain's future. The challenge is to make a more balanced country, where both the city and the village can do well, where people have a real choice about where and how they want to live. The heartbeat of empty Spain, though weak, is getting stronger. You can hear it in the laughter of children in a village school that's open again, in the sound of building as an old house is fixed up, and in the click of a keyboard connecting a person working from far away to the world. The mystery of Spain's empty heartland is slowly turning into a story of bouncing back and starting over. The journey to bring people back and make these lands lively again will be long, but it has started. The future of Spain might depend on its ability to listen to the quiet and find, within it, the beginnings of something new.